Hey there, Jake here from CVP. The RED DSM-C2 lineup of cameras have been used to capture some amazing films, television and visuals over the years, and they have all had their place in the filmmaking space. But one camera and sensor out of the pack rarely gets spoken about, the Helium. We've just had a few of these kits come into our used stock, so I thought we'd take a quick look at it as these cameras are getting rarer to see come through our doors. The RED Helium was released all the way back in 2016, in the form of the RED Epic W and Weapon. This was when RED's naming system was rather confusing, but this was simplified in 2018 when the cameras were just named as their sensor type, which made it so much easier to understand what camera could do what. The Helium was one of two 8K cameras available alongside the Monstro, and really, these were ahead of their time. The Helium has been used across a range of different productions, but its slightly small Super 35 sensor size has made it particularly popular in a few different genres that need this balance of resolution and smaller sensor size. Loads of different wildlife and natural history productions over the years have used Helium alongside other DSM-C2 cameras to capture some truly amazing imagery. And in 2018, a Helium was actually taken up into space by NASA to film some bits, which is pretty cool. It's also been used on plenty of TV series and feature films, including parts of September 5, Nobody, Mortal Engines, and Triangle of Sadness, to name a few. The sensor technology that RED have used through the years has been a large component of what's made their cameras so special. At the end of the DSM-C2 lifecycle, RED had four main sensors available in these bodies: the Gemini 5K, the Dragon X 6K, the Helium 8K, all of which are roughly Super 35, and the Monstro 8K, which was their full-frame VistaVision option. The sensor inside the Helium is a Super 35 8K CMOS sensor with a physical dimension of 29.9 by 15.77mm, giving it a 33.8mm diagonal and a pixel pitch of 3.65 microns. It has a stated dynamic range of 16.5 plus stops, but RED often overestimates their dynamic range. However, the Helium does perform very well in this regard. It's not got the fastest readout speed in the world, but it's plenty fast enough for most situations. Here are the results of our readout tests. This sensor was actually awarded DxOMark's highest ever score back in 2017, but that obviously was quite a while ago now. The high resolution of this sensor made it attractive to certain productions, but at the time, a lot of owner-operators went with the Dragon or Gemini as the resolution was much more manageable with those cameras. But for productions where resolution was key, like sports and wildlife, it made the Helium a really compelling option. This was RED's third 8K camera, following on from the Dragon 8K VV and the Monstro 8K VV. Back in 2016, when the Helium was announced, 8K was an insane amount of resolution for many productions to handle, especially for owner-operators. Almost 10 years later, 8K is way more accessible now, but 8K delivery is still not common at all, which shows just how ahead of their time RED were with these cameras. DSM-C2 offers the ability to change between multiple OLPFs depending on what you are shooting, which is a really unique feature. You can get both first and third-party OLPFs that include their standard OLPF that comes with their cameras, skin tone highlight and low light ones, which are optimized for their specific lighting environments. The Helium sensor doesn't have a native ISO, but RED do recommend shooting between 400 and 2000 ISO for the best results. But personally, I would rate it at 400 to 800, unless you really need to protect your highlights. Black shading these cameras is also really important if you want the best image you can get. This is worth always doing before you start shooting when you get the camera up to temp, and then if you have any large shifts in operating temperatures while shooting. The Helium isn't as good in low light compared to some of RED's other DSM-C2 sensors, so using some of RED's excellent exposure tools is 100% needed to not underexpose your image. With the Helium sensor being so high resolution and close to a standard Super 35 size, it means you have a huge range of lenses to choose from that will cover the sensor. And this is particularly important for a few different production types. This could be for a cinematographer who loves the Super 35 format and has lenses that they want to keep using that don't cover the newer full-frame cinema cameras. A good example of this was Mindhunter, where David Fincher and cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt chose to use the Helium paired with the brilliant light Summilux Cs to create the incredible imagery in that show. We did a video a while back all about the Summilux Cs, so if you want to learn more about them, check that video out. Another interesting use was on September 5, where cinematographer Marcus Forderer used the Helium to capture some of the archival footage for the film, but in a very creative way. They shot at the highest ISO and compression ratio in the camera's 2K windowed mode to try and purposely get the softest image out of the camera possible, which in these settings, it certainly does achieve. I love seeing technically creative choices like this in films. It's so cool. Productions where zoom lenses are crucial, such as sports and wildlife, also found the Helium a very compelling choice. This is because so many of the industry standard zooms are designed around Super 35, such as Canon's CN series, which includes the CN20, which is the gold standard for wildlife, and the Ingenue Optimo 12x 24-290, which is a staple still in the feature film and commercial world. And then of course, if you need to use full frame optics, you just won't be using the full available image circle of them. Another really important thing about these cameras is that you could window in down to 4K, still capture and deliver true 4K resolution, but obviously get the extra reach out of your lenses that windowing in the sensor allows you to do. This is especially important when wanting to deliver to 4K mandated streaming platforms. If you want to see how loads of different lenses will perform on the Helium in all the different sensor modes, head over to our lens coverage and camera comparison tool, where we capture real-world illumination of the lenses so you can see and compare performance across loads of different cameras. RED's high frame rate options have always been excellent, especially given the high resolution they offer across a lot of their cameras, and the Helium is no different. At 8K full format, you can go up to 60 frames per second, and then as you window down on the sensor, the higher the frame rate possible, until at 2K, you can capture a maximum of 300 frames per second in a 2.4:1 aspect ratio. Maximum frame rates can change though depending on if you grab an Epic W, Weapon, or DSMC2 version of the camera like we have here. The image quality of RED's high frame rate footage is excellent. The 8K 60 stuff looks brilliant, and having the option to window down into 4K and get 120 frames is great, and the image still looks really good here. This combination of high resolution and frame rates has been one of the key reasons their cameras have been so popular throughout the years, especially in natural history and wildlife, where you'll see RED cameras being used very often, partly because of this. It's also something that run and gun filmmakers will love, as you can easily swap between the different frame rates on the fly and capture stunning imagery. RED's internal RED Code RAW is one of the biggest reasons people buy and use RED cameras, and it's still one of my favourite RAW formats in any camera. It's incredibly powerful as it compresses raw mosaics data, leaving the decompression and ultimately the debayer for post. Key settings such as ISO, color space, gamma space, and white balance are stored as metadata in a sidecar file, and because of this, can be altered non-destructively. In RED's newer cameras, they use DCT compression, whereas in DSMC2, they use wavelet. This means that DSMC2 systems are more power hungry and run hotter than RED's newer systems, but wavelet does have its benefits. The most apparent being the selection of your compression ratios. With DSMC2, you can dial in your compression ratio from 2:1 all the way down to 22:1, depending on what balance of quality and data rate you need. Whereas with DSMC3, you have presets which do make them simpler to use. However, personally, I prefer being able to dial in the compression ratio yourself. In post, R3D is fantastic. It captures and stores 16-bit color depth, so you can manipulate images really nicely. And you have a bunch of raw parameters for controlling different aspects such as your ISO, white balance, highlight roll-off, and contrast, and quickly get a great looking image. There's a reason why people are so excited to see R3D come to Nikon's cameras. If you're thinking about grabbing some used kit, our second online auction is now live, and there are some really interesting and popular products available, with pricing starting as low as just £1. We'll have items from brands like Arri, Cooke, Zeiss, Canon, and more. Bidding opens on the 14th of October, so if you want to grab a bargain, head over to our website, the link to which is in the description. The menu system of DSMC2 compared to the modern day one found in the DSMC3 systems does look and feel a bit dated now, but there are actually a few features and tools that I miss from these DSMC2 systems. I haven't used the DSMC2 camera for a couple of years, and I'd forgotten how slow the cameras can be to boot and use, and how much more sluggish it feels versus the DSMC3 monitor control, which we use a lot on our Komodo X. But using these cameras does certainly make me feel a little bit nostalgic. I do really like the exposure tools that DSMC2 has though, which is this combination of histogram, traffic lights, and goalposts. Your histogram will be affected as you change your ISO, whereas the goalposts and traffic lights will not, as they are reading the raw image data off of the sensor. I love this tool and way of exposing, as essentially when you change ISO, the camera is just applying a different f-LUT, which changes how you are exposing the camera. The left goalpost is your shadows and the right is your highlights, and they each reflect the fraction of overall pixels that have become clipped or lost to noise. The traffic light system is also key for judging your clip point. You have red, green, and blue for each channel, and when about 2% of a given color's pixels have become clipped, the traffic light for that color will turn on. This is a really great way to know when you are clipping your highlights, especially with skin, as you can usually tell this by using the red channel. Using all three of these tools in tandem is a great way to expose, and make sure you get the best exposure you can. RED really did nail it with these exposure tools. The modularity of the DSMC2 system has always been both a strength and honestly a drawback. On the positive side, it offers incredible flexibility, but on the negative, RED's accessories can be quite expensive. And now these cameras are getting rarer to find and not sold new anymore, they're quite hard to find online. When picking up a DSMC2 camera, you can either buy it as a kit or go brain only and build out a configuration tailored exactly to what you want and need. The Helium kits that we've just bought in come with a really solid range of accessories, as they have been purchased as full shooting kits. A package like this would have cost something insane like £50,000 back when it was new, and today in 2025, we have just sold these kits for £4,000 excluding VAT. It's honestly pretty nuts how much this has depreciated over the years, and being able to get a package for this price now does make them look pretty appealing for certain filmmakers and productions. One of the beauties of these cameras is that you can rig them however you want. Personally, I really enjoy run and gun shooting with a base I/O expander, side handle, and a 5-inch or 7-inch monitor on top. This is a similar setup that we used to use with our Gemini. These cameras can easily adapt to gimbals, shoulder rigs, studio builds, and full cinema setups. That versatility, combined with the fact that the platform has now matured, means that there's a wide range of both first and third-party accessories to choose from. The DSMC2 cameras also feature a robust interchangeable mount design that gives you plenty of lens options as well. RED has carried some of that design over to their flagship Raptor XL, and while RF or Z mounts on the newer cameras are more flexible for adapting lenses, I much prefer the solid feel of the DSMC2 mounts if you're using PL lenses. Out of the box, they're sturdier and don't require the extra rigging you often need to add with the Raptor or Komodo, though there are mounts from the likes of RED and Kipitai that do feel really nice when they're locked down. Picking up a DSMC2 camera in 2025 could be a good option if you need a camera with more cinema-orientated design and workflow and desire the image and tools these cameras have. They offer very compelling value now, especially when you consider the image that you can capture and what they have been used to create over the years. There are a few reasons why I think this level of depreciation has occurred. RED are no longer selling this ecosystem, offering repairs, or releasing any more new firmware for them. This will make people understandably a bit reluctant to pick one up, but there are people out there still repairing them, though spare parts will start to get hard to find. Accessories will also start getting rarer as well, as some of them are already quite pricey, and I think they're going to get even more so. Honestly, buying used cameras can be a bit of a minefield, as some of them will be heavily used and abused, which is why buying through us can be a much better experience than buying privately. Every camera that comes through our doors used will be professionally evaluated and serviced by one of our experienced staff. Pretty much all of our used kit also comes with a 90-day warranty, which offers you that little bit extra peace of mind. We have a constant flow of unique and interesting kit flowing through our used and ex-demo section, so if you want to see what we currently have in stock, head over to cvp.com/used. We also buy used equipment, so if you want to upgrade or just clear out your old stock fast and easily, get in contact with us via the email in the description. The Helium 8K is the sensor I've used the least out of RED's lineup, but it can still capture fantastic images. Using this camera has reminded me just how good the DSMC2 systems were in many ways, but there are also so many improvements with RED's DSMC3 cameras. We checked out RED's newest camera, the V-Raptor XE, last month, so if you haven't already, check that video out as that camera is a beast for the price. Anyway, if you have any more questions or thoughts about the RED DSMC2 ecosystem, let us know in the comments. And if you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.